So you just hit your goal score on your LSAT practice test and you're over the moon about it. You're so excited and you're wondering, how do I make sure I don't screw this up and things go just as well on my actual official LSAT test day? If this is your situation, first off, congratulations on finally hitting your LSAT goal score. I do have some questions for anyone in this situation to make sure things are really as good as you think they are, and of course to make sure that things go even better for you ideally on the day of the test itself. Then once you're truly done with the LSAT and you actually hit the goal score on the actual official exam, of course, you can then move on to the application process. But the LSAT, of course, is the biggest factor in admissions, so we want to make sure you actually get this right. So when you're hitting your goal score on your LSAT practice test, I want to ask you, what were the circumstances in which you achieved this goal score? First off, were you taking these practice tests under strict timed conditions that mirror exactly what test day will look like? So you weren't taking tons of breaks, you weren't checking the answer key in between questions, you weren't pausing to check your phone or email or go to the bathroom or talk to friends, whatever. This was real world experience, just like day of the exam itself. You're holed up with your exam, nobody's interrupting you, you're not pausing the clock, because what happens sometimes is students take their practice tests and they're a little bit loose with the time and the breaks, and then actual test day itself, they experience a score drop. So I want to make sure that for every single practice test you're taking, the conditions mirror exactly what test day itself will be like. Assuming you've met those criteria, I want you to note, what were the conditions or the circumstances under which you took the exam? What time of day was it? Was it a weekday? Was it a weekend? Were you eating and drinking before the exam? Were you having any caffeine, coffee, energy drinks, tea, whatever? Whatever the circumstances were, I want you to note how those differ from previous practice tests you took. So maybe today you drank an extra cup of coffee, things went better. Or maybe today you drank an extra cup of coffee and you really had to go to the bathroom during the middle of the exam. You don't want to copy that situation, of course. So consider the contrast between today versus previous practice tests. I also want to note, how many times have you hit your goal score? If it was just a single time, maybe you had a special practice test that played to your strengths, but do you know this will occur again the next time you take a practice test? My rule for practice tests is that you don't want to place too much importance on any single result. Instead, you take the average of your most recent 5 practice tests, and that's going to be the best indication of where you actually stand and how you're likely to do on the day of the exam itself. So just as you wouldn't want to place too much importance on a uniquely low score, you also don't want to get too wrapped up in a uniquely high score. Take a few more practice tests before test day itself to see where you truly stand. Now, if you've hit your goal, I'm curious to know, what was that goal? If it was, say, a 160 or 165, consider the medians of the schools you're applying to. For example, all of the top 14 law schools have medians of 170 or above. So if you want to maximize your odds of getting into a T14, or even if you don't want the T14, but you still want to maximize your odds of getting significant scholarship money, of course, you always want to be above the medians of the schools you're applying to. So maybe your goal was a 160 or your goal was a 165, but now you want to consider putting in the extra work to aim even higher. So reset your goal to be 170 plus to maximize the best possible law school admissions outcomes for yourself. If you're saying, nah, Steve, I'm done. This was my goal. I hit it. I want to move on. I totally hear you on that. But you might want to consider that there are still a few more LSAT test dates you could take and still apply early in the cycle, if not at the very beginning of the cycle in the fall. And so when you consider that the LSAT score is the number one factor in the admissions process, it may be worth putting in another month or two to consider if this might allow you to achieve your true full LSAT potential, maximizing your odds of getting into the best schools possible, maybe considering some new reach schools you weren't considering previously, and maybe you want to consider how much value that scholarship money would mean to you if you just gave it another month or two on the LSAT. That being said, if you are now done with the LSAT, you hit your goal score on multiple practice tests, and you also hit it on the day of the exam itself, of course, you've earned it. It's time for you to now move on to the admissions portion of the application, specifically the application essays. Consider, of course, you've got your personal statement, optional essays, addenda, resume, requesting letters of rec, all that good stuff. Also consider that law school applications are a bit different than in the past because law schools have removed the diversity statements Due to the Supreme Court's ban on affirmative action, they've now added in more unique optional essays, oftentimes specific to their schools. So you may need to write more essays than you would have in previous years. It may be a bit more work for you to write all these different essays. If you'd like my help with that, my team and I would be glad to help you out. I've got a great group of editors with admissions experience who can help you with all of your essays. Again, the personal statement, the optional essays, the addenda, the resume, even help requesting letters of rec, negotiating with law schools. We'll help you with all of that, as many rounds of edits and revisions as you need for all of your documents for every single school you're applying to. If you're interested in finding out more, you can check out the links below the video to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And if you found this video helpful, please do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to see it. I don't do any advertising for the channel. I rely only on word of mouth to help get the word out, so your spreading the video really does make a difference. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.